beautiful day and good to have you on Atlantic Television Network Blowout, which is a syndicated live program of the network. Here we hold conversation on special interest topics. We bring you news, events, and stories through correspondence, reports, and stakeholders analysis. Now, on our first point of call on the show today, we'll look at AMCO's chart, the federal government to reintroduce electric vehicles mass transit scheme. And then we'll go to the FCT. Wike pledges to improve security sanitation in 6 months. Still in FCT, Wike, Abuja is not Port Harcourt. It is coming from Atiku spokesperson Daniel Bwala. And then we have, still on security this time, Nigerian Army repel IPOB ESN attack at Okwoji, Owerri, Onitsha Expressway. In Ku, President Tinubu meets Ribadu, ECOWAS delegation to Niger. And in ECOWAS now, RFI warns against Niger invasion war between brothers. On corruption, British police slam Alison Madueke with bribery charges. And awards, the Times of Israel names Kano for Jewish Nobel Prize. Our resource person on the show this morning is Barrister Mike Karipo. He is here this morning as a civil society advocate. Stay with us. We'll come back to you after the break with AMCO's chat. Welcome back to ATM Blowout, and it's time for AMCO's chart. So the federal government says it has finalized plans to reintroduce a public transit system to reduce transportation costs in Nigeria due to the removal of fuel subsidies. The federal government plans to include electric vehicles in the nation's public transport project. While speaking in Abuja while resuming work as the Minister of Transportation, Senator Said Ahmed Al-Khali said the ministry would reintroduce mass transit system in Nigeria, adding that it will ensure a sustainable collaboration with related ministries, agencies, and corporate entities to reactivate the road transport and mass transit operations in the country, while the ministry's focus would be on policies that will encourage reduction in the cost of movement for both passengers and cargo. Ahmed Al-Khali also said careful study of prevailing economic trends will undertake the provision, modernization, rehabilitation, planning, and development of the rail transport sector with efficient security services to support the realization of primary purpose of government, stressing that the initiative will no doubt maximize the potentials embodied in the recent constitutional alterations that moved the rail transport services from the exclusive list to the concurrent list, while also reducing the frequent menace on the roads characterized with accidents, kidnappings, and armed robbery. He also promised to assist to harness the resources of the nation, promote national prosperity and dynamic self-reliant economy that will actualize the renewed hope of the present administration's developmental agenda of ensuring an efficient transport system consistent with the socio-economic objectives of the Constitution. All right, let's talk about the reintroduction before we talk about the security, which is a major part of this. And I'm glad that the Minister of Transportation talked about that. Let's talk about the reintroduction of electric vehicles mass transit scheme. First, let's look at mass transit scheme. When you talk about mass transit scheme, and then you look at the number of mass transit owned by probably private individuals now, and you ask yourself, in comparison with that to mass transit scheme owned by government agencies, by at state level, for instance. I don't know if there is still, I know there used to be a federal transport system, something like that. I can't remember vividly right now, but let's put all of this side by side and then ask ourselves a pertinent question. How do you, in all fairness, begin to talk about mass transit scheme when you don't even have the capacity to manage the basics? We are still talking about ensuring that we have electricity, for instance. We're still talking about managing education, providing quality education, providing quality healthcare system. Now government wants to diversify into electric vehicles, introduction of electric vehicles, and then mass transit scheme. So the big question here then would be, what are you talking about? We are talking, when you provide, it seems like majority of what this government wants to do is to provide mass transit scheme, ensure that people can pay transportation, give them a subsidized transportation. That money being invested in subsidized transportation is the issue here. Why don't you look for a way to invest in fixing the refineries? Why don't we see you ensuring that we can buy PMS at a normal price, because this is a natural gift. This is a natural resource that we have as a people. Why don't you think of how to get to work? Why don't you, if it means even it's okay, give us 1 year. We are bringing in people who are professionals to join professionals in Nigeria, foreign professionals and professionals in Nigeria, to join hands to ensure, to give us a master plan. There are conversations we need to have. So when you begin to talk about reintroduction of mass transit scheme, what exactly is that going to do for us? You're still going to spend money to do that. How much is it going to cost you to provide a mass transit scheme? How many buses are you? The states are already doing that. Several states are already doing that. What Nigerians are really complaining about right now is not really the cost of transportation. It's to ensure that the economy is worked to the point that we can actually breathe. Nobody wants to go to the market and you still cannot afford the things that you want to buy. Take a typical example. Okay, you provide me with transport to come to work. Okay, you've done that. So when I want to go to the market to buy something, does that affect the cost of goods in the market? The answer is no. Because the transporter who will go to the bush market, the transporter who will come from the north, is going to spend that same money to buy the fuel or diesel, as the case may be, whatever engine that their vehicle uses. They're going to transport it down to maybe the south-south or southeast, or from the south-south to the north. At the end of the day, they're still going to spend money, and that money is going to affect what the retailers, what the consumers, what the customers are going to pay for that product. So why don't you give us provide a platform where we can actually say Nigeria is working? All of this news about, okay, let's even talk about electric cars, electric vehicles. From CNG buses to electric vehicle. I think we should actually ask the Buhari government, where are we going with all of this? From making arrangements to convert existing vehicles, fuel, PMS tanks, to now electric, to use, so that they can use the CNG gas that the president will learn commissioned a few weeks ago in Abuja and other places, so that they can start producing CNG gases. And there's enough CNG gas so that we can now use CNG gases, so we can use gas to power most of our equipment, machineries, and what have you. From that, you're now talking about electric vehicle. Why is the government even going into this? That's the big question. That's what I want to find out. What is the need for Nigeria? Every businessman thinks of revenue. If government is not going to be a good businessman, like we've always been told, that's fine. Why are you going into electric vehicle? What is that going to do for us in the economy? Why don't you say you're empowering? What is the economic value to Nigerians when you're talking about electric vehicle? This should be a private enterprise. Why is that even part of what you're talking about doing as Minister of Transportation? Honestly, some of these conversations, sometimes I ask myself, was it even well thought out? Or is it just something that someone says to a minister that's coming into power and he says, oh yeah, let's go there, let's do that. But can you, sir, take time to think through this? Can you take time to think through this? Set up a team. Let's even see how much value this brings to the table. There's already the rail system. So if you want to talk about subsidization, begin to talk about, go to plan with your petroleum counterpart of the minister of the Heineken, for instance. Go plan with him, sit down and begin to dissect so that both of you can, and any other ministry that is in line with this, have the government, have the Tinubu's government come up with a master plan on how to get our refineries working. That is the solution. Then think of how to make sure that the rail systems are quickly functioning. Mass transit, how? Because when you're able to provide, let states do the mass transit, please. Let them handle that. Some of them are already doing that. You might need to encourage them. The federal government does not need to dabble into everything. Begin to think of the railway lines. How can we get the railway lines working effectively? How can we get so that the goods can actually go bring? They can without you going have to use the number of traders who are dependent on diesel and all of that to bring down their goods down to the south or down to the north, depending on where they are going. So the west, it reduces so that goods can, at least goods cannot that can be perished in 1 or 2 weeks. You can actually put this into bin. They now begin to drive down to wherever they need to take the goods to, and then it reduces the cost. It saves us from a lot of, it has a lot of advantage when you use the rail to actually push these goods down. But when you are not doing that and you're just looking at it from the angle of, okay, let's do this. I honestly want to say, please fix our security system. When you fix the security, on the roads, when you ensure that vehicles are working, ensure that the refineries are working, leave the states to do the palliatives. Leave the palliative of the mass transit. Let the states manage that. It's better. There are bigger things we can begin to talk about in terms of transportation system in this country. Security is a key part. I'm glad you mentioned that, but security is a critical part of that. And now if you can do that and get the railway working and other forms of transportation system that can bring a better development in Nigeria, yes. But the issue of mass transit, electric vehicle, I think private individuals can begin to invest in that because it gives them a relative revenue. But for government, I honestly, maybe I'm not a good economist, but I'm just honestly finding it hard to say how is this going to help in any way other than just spending money in things that government cannot manage, and at the end of the day we'll come back to speaking English. But I hope that governments can, these ministers as they come in, they can actually think through projects before announcing them, and not just when someone says something, it sounds, oh, this is cool, and then you announce it and they begin to invest money that we don't have, and at the end of the day we'll come up with nothing. We end up where we started off again, or even worse, as a matter of fact. Anyway, that's been Anchor's Chat, and I will come back to you after the break.
agreement with the EU, but
from the line across the ocean to the land beyond the mountains, through the Sahara, we bring.
Every day our lives are changed by history.
We are one people, all of us.
Leaders, politics,
Nobody's ambition is what the blood.
I have fought very firmly.
natural occurrence, war, and the world economy.
I belong to everybody and I belong to nobody.
ATN covers it all on ATN Politics today.